The first time Jae-won heard her sing, he forgot his own name. Not figuratively, he literally could not remember it for seconds. For seconds of standing in a doorway, in a club he owned half of, surrounded by men who were afraid of him, and not knowing who he was. Because her voice did something to the air, made it heavier, warmer, like being underwater in the best possible way. She was 55 years old. She had lived more in those 55 years than he had in 32, and she knew it. That was the thing that destroyed him. Not her body, not her voice, not the way she moved like every song was a secret she was deciding whether to share. The way she looked at him the first time, like she already knew exactly how this ended, and stayed anyway. She was older, she was wiser, she had already survived one man who thought he could own her, and Jae-won, the most dangerous man in Seoul, walked straight into her like he had never learned a single thing. This is what it cost him. Subscribe, leave a comment, share this with someone who will feel it. This story is just beginning. Chapter 1. Jae-won had wanted many women, not because he was weak, though wanting her made him weak, not because he couldn't stop, though with her he couldn't, but because she was the first woman who ever sang directly at him and made him feel like he owed her something he couldn't name. He had come to Blue Lotus for a meeting. Park Sung-jin, a man who moved money through 3 countries and smiled like he didn't know what it cost, had chosen this place specifically. Neutral ground, he'd said. Jae-won hadn't objected. He knew the club. He knew who owned it. He had never been inside before tonight. That was his first mistake. The second was walking in during her set. She was on stage when he entered, and the room was different because of it. Not quieter, not louder, just oriented differently. Everybody in that room was turned toward her the way plants turn toward light. Without decision, without awareness, just turning. She was wearing something dark and simple. No performance in the fabric, no performance in the stance. She stood at the microphone the way a woman stands in her own kitchen, completely at home, completely unbothered by being watched. She was 55 years old. She had lived more in those 55 years than he had in 32. He understood this the moment he saw her. Not her body, not her voice. Though her voice was doing something to his chest, he would spend the next 3 weeks trying to explain to himself. Not the way she moved, which was barely movement at all, just small shifts of weight, small turns of the wrist, the body remembering something the mind had stopped tracking years ago. It was the way she looked at him once. 1 second. In the middle of the second verse, her eyes found him across the room, across the lowlights, and the smoke, and the 30 other people who all believed she was singing, only for them. And she looked at him the way you look at something you already know the ending of. Calm, clear, unhurried, like she had already seen this moment before it happened, and decided it was worth letting happen anyway. Then she looked away, back to the song, back to the room, back to whatever interior country she lived in when she sang. Jae-won stood in the doorway for more seconds. Then he found his table. Then he sat down. Then he did not hear a single word Park Sung-jin said for the next 40 minutes. The meeting ended. Park Sung-jin left satisfied, or believing he was satisfied, which was the same thing with men like him. Jae-hwan's assistant materialized at his elbow with a coat and a car key and the quiet efficiency of someone who had learned never to ask questions. Jae-hwan did not move. She had finished her set. She was at the bar now, not performing the role of owner, not working the room, just sitting at the far end of the bar, a glass of water in front of her, talking to no one, present and completely unavailable at the same time. He called the waiter over. Send her a drink, whatever she's having, the good version. The waiter nodded and moved away. Jae-hwan watched. The waiter reached her, spoke quietly. She listened without turning her head. Then she said something. The waiter came back. She said she doesn't drink what she didn't choose herself. Jae looked at the waiter for a moment. Then he stood up. He crossed the room without hurry. He had walked into rooms that went silent when he entered. He had walked into rooms where men stood up without being asked. He had never walked across a bar toward a woman who didn't look up when he approached. She didn't look up. She was looking at her water glass, or at nothing, or at something only she could see. He stopped beside her. "May I sit?" She turned her head then, slowly, without surprise, without the performance of being unsurprised. She looked at him the way she had looked from the stage. Direct, unhurried, already finished evaluating. "Sit," she said. Not permission. Statement. He sat. She picked up her water glass and took a small sip, set it back down, waited. He had prepared nothing. This was unusual. Jae-hwan always had something prepared. An opening, a read of the room, some version of himself appropriate to the context. She had none of those. She was just there, waiting with the patience of someone who had learned that silence was the most accurate mirror. "You sing like you don't need the audience," he said finally. She turned to look at him again. Something shifted in her face. Almost something. "I don't," she said. "Then why perform?" "Because tonight I wanted to." He looked at her. "That's the only reason. That's always the only reason." A pause. Not uncomfortable. Just space. "You were in the doorway," she said, "when I started the second verse." "Yes." "You didn't sit down right away." "No." "Why not?" He considered lying. Considered the version of himself that would produce a smooth, calibrated answer. Discarded both? "I forgot what I was there for," he said. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her water glass again. "Do you actually know how to listen to music?" she said, her voice dropping lower, slower, the question landing without a rise at the end. "Or are you just very good at looking like you do?" He answered honestly, because it was the only answer that felt right. "Until tonight, I think I was only making the appearance of it." She nodded once, like he had confirmed something she already suspected. Not impressed, not moved, just noting the data point. They sat in silence for a while after that. She didn't feel it. He didn't try to. At some point, he couldn't have said when. His assistant appeared in his peripheral vision and then quietly disappeared again. The car could wait. When the bartender began stacking chairs at the far end of the room, she stood. Not hurried, just done. "I close in 20 minutes, she said. "I'll leave," he said. She looked at him. "I didn't ask you to." She walked behind the bar, checked something in the register, spoke a few words in low Korean to the bartender, moved through her space the way water moves, without announcing itself, finding the path that already existed. He stayed. 20 minutes later, the last staff member locked the front door from the outside. The lights dropped by half. Just the two of them and the low gold of the bar lamps. She came back around the bar and sat, not next to him this time, across, folded her hands on the counter, looked at him with the same clear, unhurried attention. "You own part of this building," she said. Not a question. "Yes, I've never seen you here before. I've never had a reason to come in before. And now you do." He didn't answer immediately. She waited. He had the distinct sensation that she could wait longer than he could, and that she knew this, and was not using it as a weapon. It was simply true. "I didn't come in because of a reason," he said finally. "I came in because of a meeting. The reason, that's different." She tilted her head slightly. The smallest possible acknowledgement. "Come back Thursday," she said. "I sing Thursday." Then she stood, picked up a cloth, and began wiping down the bar. The conversation was over, not closed over. The way a song ends, not with explanation, just with the last note fading into air. Jae-hwan stood, put on his jacket, walked to the door. Outside, his driver was waiting. His assistant had 3 messages queued on the secondary phone. 2 of them were urgent. He got in the car, looked at the messages, put the phone face down on the seat. Thursday, he thought. He had not felt the particular weight of a specific day of the week since he was a child waiting for something good. He rode back across Seoul in silence. The city did its usual thing. Lights, motion, the permanent organized chaos of a place that never fully sleeps. He saw none of it. He was still in the doorway, still for seconds of not knowing his own name. Still, the way she had looked at him from the stage, already knowing the ending, staying anyway. Jae-hwan, who had not been surprised by anything in 11 years, stared at the back of his driver's headrest and felt something that took him almost 10 minutes to identify. Anticipation, clean and uncomplicated, like being 22 again, before the weight of everything he had built settled permanently onto his shoulders. Just Thursday. Just, she said to come back. Just. The particular silence of a woman who does not fill space with noise and means it. He picked up his phone, opened his calendar, looked at Thursday. He had 3 conflicts. He moved all 3. Chapter 2. He came back Thursday. He told himself it was because he had nothing better to do that evening. This was not true. He had for things better to do that evening. He came back anyway. The club was fuller than Tuesday. Different crowd. Younger in some places, older in others. The particular mix of a place that has a real reputation rather than a manufactured one. People came here because someone they trusted had told them to. That kind of room had a different quality of attention. Quieter before the music started, more willing to be changed by it. He took the same table. It had not been reserved for him. It was simply available, as if the room had held it. She came on at 9:30. No announcement, no introduction. The light shifted slightly, warmer, lower, and she was there. Different dress tonight. Same quality of presence. The kind of woman who does not need a stage to have a stage. The stage needs her. She sang for songs. He counted them afterward, trying to account for the time. It had felt like one long continuous thing, like breathing, like weather. She did not look at him this time. He noticed this the way you notice the absence of something you hadn't known you were expecting. After the set, she moved through the room briefly. A word here, a hand on her shoulder there. The practiced ease of an owner who genuinely likes her people without needing them to know it. Then she was behind the bar. Then she was looking at him. She didn't gesture, didn't call over, just looked. He got up and walked to the bar. "You move something," she said when he sat down. "To be here tonight." He looked at her. "How do you know that?" "Tuesday you came in during the second song. Thursday my sets start at 9:30. You were seated by 9:15. She poured herself water. "Men who have nothing to move don't arrive early." He said nothing. She was correct, and they both knew it. "What did you move?" she asked, not prying, genuinely curious, the way a person is curious about a fact, not a feeling. "A dinner," he said. "2 calls, and..." He paused. "A meeting I'd been avoiding for 6 weeks." She raised an eyebrow, slightly, barely, "And now it'll be 7 weeks. "Yes." Something almost like amusement moved across her face. Not a smile, a shift. The difference between weather changing and weather arriving. "What do you do?" she asked. "When you're not sitting in my bar." "Business," he said. "What kind?" "The kind that funds buildings in Itaewon." She looked at him steadily. "I know what kind," she said. "I asked you anyway." "Why?" "To see if you'd lie." He held her gaze. "I don't lie about what I am," he said. "I just don't announce it. There's a difference." "To me there is." She considered this, picked up her water, put it down. "I had a husband," she said, without particular weight. "A long time ago. He lied about what he was. Not to me, to himself. That's the more dangerous kind." He waited. She didn't continue. The door to that particular room had opened 1 inch and then closed again. He understood this was not an invitation. It was information offered once, not to be referenced again without permission. "Your daughter," he said. "She works here?" Solange tilted her head. "No, but she's in Seoul." "Why do you think that?" "The photo on the office wall. I saw it when you came out before the set. Recent. Same street, different season." She looked at him for a long moment. "You notice things," she said. Double quotes, "Yes. Is that professional or personal?" "Both," he said. "Usually I can't separate them. And with me?" He paused. "I'm trying to figure that out." She nodded once, filed it, moved on. "She's 26, Solange said. She's a ceramicist. She has a studio in Moppo. She does not come to the club when I perform because she says it makes her nervous." A pause. "I find this very funny." "Why?" "Because she is the least nervous person I have ever raised." He found himself almost smiling. This surprised him. He could not remember the last time a conversation had moved him toward anything resembling lightness. They talked until the bartender finished closing the register. About Seoul. She had been here 11 years, had watched the city change around her the way a river changes a riverbank, slowly and then suddenly. About music. She listened to everything, but she trusted Jazz because Jazz was honest about being complicated. About the neighborhood, she knew every business owner on the block by name and by the particular quality of their trouble. She did not ask about his family. She did not ask about his work beyond the one question. She did not try to fill the silences between topics. He had spent his adult life in rooms where people performed for him, performing loyalty, performing confidence, performing casualness they did not feel. She performed nothing. She was simply present. And presence, he was realizing, was rarer than anything he had ever paid for. The following Tuesday he came back. The following Thursday. The Tuesday after that. They developed, without discussing it, without naming it, a rhythm. He arrived before the set. He stayed after. They talked at the bar until the room emptied. Then she closed, and he left. And he drove back across Seoul, with the windows down regardless of the temperature. One Thursday she didn't perform. He sat at his usual table for 40 minutes before her bartender, a compact man named Hyun-soo, who had clearly decided to tolerate Jae-won without warmth or hostility, materialized beside him. She said to tell you, she's not singing tonight. She said you can stay or go. Jae-won stayed. He ordered water. He listened to the hired quartet and thought about the specific quality of her absence, which was different from the absence of other things. Most absences were just empty space. Hers had texture. When the club closed and Hyun-soo was locking the front door, Jae-won was the last one out. On the sidewalk, his phone lit up with 6 messages he had not looked at in 3 hours. He looked at them now. Handled to. Deferred for. He did not examine why he was deferring them. The following Thursday she was there, and the Thursday after that. And somewhere in the 4th week, he could not have said which night, which conversation, which particular silence. Something shifted. Not between them, in him. He began to notice the specific weight of the hours between visits. The way Tuesday morning felt different from Tuesday evening. The way his assistant had stopped asking why he was keeping certain evenings clear. The way he had stopped explaining. He was not a man who let things happen to him. He had built his entire life on the principle of decision, of forward motion, of choosing the shape of every room he entered. And yet here he was, returning, not because he had decided to, because not returning had stopped feeling like an option. On a Wednesday, between visits, in the particular restlessness of the middle of the week, he was in his office on the 14th floor when his head of security, a man named Cho, who had been with him for 8 years and who communicated primarily through posture, appeared in the doorway with something in his face that was not quite discomfort, but was adjacent to it. There's a situation, Cho said. Kang Tae-young. Jae-won set down his pen. Kang Tae-young was a developer, legitimate on paper, structured correctly, the kind of man whose hands were always clean because he paid other people to do the dirty work. He and Jae-won had overlapping interests in 3 properties. The overlap had always been managed. What kind of situation? He's been making inquiries, Cho said, about a property in Itaewon, Blue Lotus Building. Jae-won was still for a moment. What kind of inquiries? Purchase inquiries. The landlord is open to conversation. He looked at Cho. Cho looked back. Neither of them said the thing they were both thinking, which was, Jae-won also owned part of that building, had owned it for 4 years, had never done anything with that ownership except collect a passive return, and apparently never once go inside until 5 weeks ago. When did this start? Jae-won asked. 3 weeks ago, Cho said. First contact. 3 weeks ago, Jae-won had been sitting at a bar asking a woman if she knew how to listen to music. Kang Tae-young had been circling her building. Let it sit, Jae-won said. For now. Cho nodded and left. Jae-won turned back to the window. The city spread out below him, familiar and indifferent, doing what cities do, generating pressure, generating motion, turning everything eventually into a transaction. He had not told her. He would tell himself later that he had not yet known the full shape of it, that there was nothing concrete to report, that he was handling it. These things were partially true. The part that wasn't true was the part that knew she would want to know, and knew, with the particular clarity of a man who understands himself better than he pretends to, that telling her meant a conversation he wasn't ready to have. So he said nothing. He came back Thursday. She sang. He sat at the bar afterward and she talked about a musician she had seen in Bangkok 20 years ago who had played trumpet like he was arguing with God. And Jae-won listened and thought about Kang Tae-young's inquiries and the landlord who was open to conversation, and he told himself he would handle it before it became anything she needed to know about. He was good at handling things. He had been handling things since he was 19 years old. What he had not accounted for was the particular way her world worked, the density of its connections, the way 11 years in a neighborhood builds a network of information that moves faster and through different channels than anything his office tracked. On a Friday, 10 days after Cho's report, at 11 in the morning, the door to his office opened without a knock. His assistant appeared in the doorway with the face of a man who had tried to stop something and failed. Behind him, Solange. She was not dressed for the club. Dark trousers, a coat, no performance in any of it. She walked past his assistant like he was furniture. She crossed the office. She sat down in the chair across from his desk. She folded her hands. She looked at him. She did not speak first. He looked back at her for a long moment, dismissed his assistant with a look. The door closed. The silence lasted exactly long enough. You knew, she said. Not a question, not an accusation. A fact, delivered with the same precision she used for everything. About Kang Tae-young, you knew before it became a fire inspection, and a letter about the license, and a very polite phone call from my landlord, who has never called me in 11 years. He did not look away. Yes, he said. I knew. She nodded once, absorbing. How long? 10 days. She was quiet. He watched her process this, not with visible emotion, not with the performance of being hurt. She was simply recalibrating, integrating new information into an existing understanding. Then she said, "You let your world touch mine." A pause. I didn't ask for that. Another pause. Now fix it. She held his gaze for one more beat. And remember, this is the only time I'm asking. She stood, put on her coat, walked to the door. At the door she stopped, not turning around. Thursday, she said. I'm singing Thursday. Then she left. Jae-won sat in his office for a long time after the door closed. Outside, Seoul moved in its usual way. 14 floors below, people transacted, argued, carried things from one place to another. He picked up his phone, called Cho, Kang Tae-young. He said, "Handle it. Full stop. By Wednesday." He put the phone down. He was not thinking about Kang Tae-young. He was thinking about the specific quality of her voice when she said fix it. Not raised, not shaking, not performing anger or performing calm. Just certain. The way a fact is certain. The way a door closing is certain. He had been told what to do by many people in his life. His father, his father's associates. The particular architecture of obligation that came with building what he had built. None of them had ever made him want to move this fast. He called Cho back. "Tuesday," he said. Not Wednesday, Tuesday. Chapter 3, he handled it by Tuesday. Kang Tae-young received a phone call Monday evening from 3 different directions simultaneously. His primary lender, his insurance broker, and a city planning contact he had cultivated for 6 years. By Tuesday morning, he had withdrawn his interest in the Blue Lotus building without explanation, without public complaint, and with the particular quiet of a man who understood that some doors, once closed against you, do not reopen. Jae-won did not tell Solange the details. She had not asked for details. She had asked for resolution, and resolution was what she received. He came to the club Tuesday night. Not his usual night. Not her singing night. Just a Tuesday. He didn't know exactly why. He told himself he was in the neighborhood. This was also not true. He had not been in the neighborhood. He had driven there from the opposite side of the city. The club was open, but quiet. A small quartet, midweek crowd. The kind of evening that belonged to regulars. Hyun-soo was behind the bar and acknowledged Jae-won with the same expression. He always used neutrality so precise it had to be intentional. Jae-won sat at the bar, ordered water, waited. She came out of the back hallway 30 minutes later, not from the direction of the stage, from the direction of the office. She was wearing dark trousers and a loose shirt, and she had something in her hand. That turned out to be a lighting schedule for the following month. She was reading it as she walked. She did not look up when she reached the bar. She sat 2 seats away from him, kept reading. He waited. She finished the page she was on, set the papers down, picked up the glass of water Hyun-soo had already placed without being asked. Drank. Put it down. It's done, he said. I know, she said. A pause. How? He asked. She looked at him sideways. My landlord called me this morning, very apologetic, very eager to confirm that our lease arrangement was stable and mutually beneficial. She picked up her papers again. Men like your associate don't withdraw quietly unless someone made the cost of not withdrawing very clear. He's not my associate. He was in your orbit. She said it without accusation. That's enough. He absorbed this. It was accurate. The distinction he was drawing between associate and obstacle, between known and controlled, was a distinction that existed in his world, but not necessarily in hers. Her world operated on different geometries. Proximity was its own category of responsibility. I should have told you sooner, he said. She turned to look at him fully then. Her expression was not forgiving and not withholding. It was attentive, like she was listening for something specific inside the words. Yes, she said. You should have. I thought I could resolve it before it reached you. And it reached you before I resolved it. She nodded once, filed it. Why didn't you tell me when you knew? He considered the honest answer. He had been considering it for 10 days. Because telling you meant explaining how I knew. And explaining how I knew meant having a conversation about what I am and what that means for your building and your license and every other thing you have built here. He paused. I wasn't ready for that conversation, but I was supposed to wait for you to be ready. No, he said. I was wrong. She was quiet for a moment. The quartet played something slow in the background. A few tables laughed at something private. I've had men protect me from information before, she said finally. They called it care. It wasn't care. It was control. She picked up her water. You should know the difference. I do know the difference. Then why? He looked at her. Because with you, I don't know which one I'm doing until it's already done. And that, he stopped, looked at the bar, looked back at her. That is unfamiliar. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then something shifted in her face. Not a smile, not warmth exactly, but a kind of acknowledgement. Recognition, like a word used correctly in a language you are still learning. Unfamiliar, she repeated. You mean you couldn't classify it? Yes. That bothers you? Yes. She set down her glass. Good, she said, and returned to her lighting schedule. He sat with this. It was not absolution, exactly, not forgiveness, something more structural. A door that had been partially closed returned to its previous position. Not further, exactly to where it had been. He understood that this was, from her, generous. They stayed like that for an hour. Him at the bar, her reading through her papers, occasional words exchanged about nothing that mattered. The easy lateral movement of two people who had begun to share a certain quality of silence. The quartet finished its set. The crowd thinned. Hyeon-soo dimmed the outer lights. At some point, she put the lighting schedule away and leaned forward on the bar. With her elbows, a different posture than he had seen from her before. Less formal. She looked tired in the specific way of someone who manages a great deal and occasionally lets the weight show to people she has decided to let see it. Tell me about the first time you were in a jazz club, she said. He thought about it. I was 17. My father took me. He had business. There was always business, but he liked the music. He would conduct the meetings and then sit for an hour afterward and just listen. A pause. I thought it was performance at the time. Something he did for effect. I understood later it wasn't. What did you understand? That it was the only hour of the week when he wasn't running calculations. He turned his glass on the bar. He died before I could ask him if that was true. She didn't offer condolence. He appreciated this. The absence of performed sympathy was its own form of respect. My mother sang, she said instead, not professionally, in church, at home, at any occasion that offered itself. She had a voice like something that had been waiting a very long time to be used. She paused. I didn't understand what I inherited from her until I was 30, and trying not to sing, and finding I couldn't stop. What were you trying to do instead? Dance. I was a dancer first. Bodies before voices. I thought if I could control the body fully enough, I wouldn't need the other thing. A pause. The voice doesn't negotiate. He looked at her. She was looking at the middle distance, not far away, just at some internal point that she visited and returned from in the space of a few words. You were a dancer, he said. How long? From 6 to 34. Then a knee, then a different life, then Seoul. She said it the way you describe weather, as something that happened and changed the landscape without requiring commentary on whether it was fair. You don't perform it. The dancing, the loss of it. She looked at him sharply then, not offended, but precise, calibrating. Why would I perform it? Most people do. When something that large ends, most people need the audience for their grief, she said. I don't need an audience for mine. She picked up her water. It was a life. Now it's a different life. The body still knows. That's enough. He thought about this for a long time. Long enough that she had moved on, checking her phone, signing off on something Hyeon-soo had brought over, the ordinary mechanics of ending a working night. The body still knows. He looked at his hands on the bar. He had been carrying things in them for a long time, obligations, pressures, the particular weight of a world built on strategic leverage. He could not have said when the hands had learned that weight. Before his father died, after, both, on a Thursday 2 weeks later, a singing Thursday, the room full and warm. He arrived early as usual and watched her set from his table. She sang 3 songs and then, between the third and fourth, she stepped back from the microphone and said something to the pianist. He nodded. She walked to the edge of the stage. Then she stepped down, not off the stage entirely, to the side, where there was a small open area of floor between the stage platform and the front tables. She stood there for a moment in the low light. The room shifted. The pianist began something slow and instrumental, and she moved, not performing, not executing choreography for an audience. She moved the way people move when they are thinking through something with their body. Weight shifting, a turn. One arm lifting and lowering with the precision of something remembered, not chosen. She was testing something, working something out. It lasted perhaps 90 seconds. Then she returned to the microphone and finished the set. The room applauded. She nodded once and walked backstage. He sat very still at his table. He had watched her. That was what had happened. He had watched her in the 90 seconds when she forgot the room existed, when the body was moving for reasons that had nothing to do with any of them, and he had felt something that was not attraction, or was not only attraction, something more like witnessing, like being allowed to see something that didn't need to be seen to exist. She would have moved exactly the same in an empty room. He was at the bar when she came back out. She sat to seats away, as she sometimes did, and accepted water from Hyeon-soo. You were working something out, he said. She looked at him. You're watching closely. Yes, she considered him. The fourth song, the transition between the bridge and the final chorus. There's a moment that wants physical punctuation, and I've been trying to find it. She paused. I found it tonight. The arm. She looked at him again, more carefully this time. Yes. A pause. "You know what you're looking at. My father's hour of jazz," he said. I paid attention eventually. Something moved in her face. Not the almost smile. Something quieter. A door that did not open, but acknowledged there was a handle. On a Sunday, not a club night, an actual Sunday, when the city was moving at a different pace, he found himself parked on the street outside Blue Lotus at 2 in the afternoon for no reason he was prepared to examine. The club was closed. The street was quiet. He was looking at the facade, the sign, the dark windows, the particular solidity of a place that has earned its place in a neighborhood over years. He had owned part of this building for 4 years. He had never once thought about what that meant. It was an asset. It returned a number every quarter. It existed on a spreadsheet alongside 14 other properties. He drove away without getting out of the car. That evening he called his financial manager and restructured his interest in the property, converted the ownership stake from its current arrangement to something cleaner, more direct. He told his manager it was for tax efficiency. This was not why. He did not examine why. He told himself he was not ready to examine why. This, too, was only partially true. What was fully true was this. The building had been a number. Now it was the place where she had built 11 years of something that was entirely hers, on a lease she had signed before she knew he existed, in a neighborhood she had chosen independently, in a city she had moved to for reasons that had nothing to do with him. And he had nearly let someone take it from her because he had been in the habit of treating buildings like numbers. He sat with this in a way he did not normally sit with things. Usually he processed, concluded, and moved. Tonight he just sat with it. The particular weight of having almost done something irreversible without knowing it, of how close proximity and carelessness can be. On Thursday she sang. On the following Tuesday he came in, and they sat at the bar until 2 in the morning talking about cities they had lived in. She had lived in 4. He had lived in 1, and she asked him once, carefully, what Seoul meant to him. And he said, obligation. And she looked at him with that particular attentiveness and said, only that. And he said, and now something else. And she didn't ask what. And he didn't say. And the silence was exactly the right weight for what it was holding. He walked to his car at 2:15. The night was cold. He had left his coat on the bar stool. He realized and went back. The door was still unlocked. He pushed it open. She was alone in the empty club. The lights were down except for the stage. One working light still on, casting a small warm circle on the floor. She was in the middle of that circle, not dancing, standing still, head up, eyes closed, hands at her sides. He stood in the doorway. She did not open her eyes, did not startle, did not speak, simply continued whatever the standing still was. He understood, watching her, that this was not stillness as absence. This was stillness as completion. She was at the end of something, the end of the day, the end of the week, some interior settlement that required this particular posture in this particular light to resolve. He got his coat from the bar stool. He left without a word. In the car, driving home, he understood something that he did not have language for yet. Something about the quality of a person who can be fully alone in a room and be complete there. Something about what it meant to want to be in proximity to that, not to interrupt it, not to change it, just near it. He did not have the word for this yet. He was beginning to understand it was not a word he had needed before. Chapter 4. He told himself on the night of her last performance before the tour that he would not stay until the end. He stayed until the end. The club was full in a way it rarely was. Not packed, not loud, but dense with something. Anticipation, maybe, or the particular quality of an audience that knows it is about to be without something for a while and is trying to take in enough to last. Word had moved through the neighborhood the way word moves in places with real communities. Not announced, just known. She was leaving Thursday. She was back in 3 weeks. Come Thursday if you can. He had come Thursday. He was at his usual table. He had not reserved it. It had been available. He was beginning to suspect Hyeon-soo of managing this quietly and saying nothing, which would be entirely consistent with everything he knew about Hyeon-soo. She came on at 9:30. No preamble, no announcement. The lights shifted and she was there. And the room changed the way rooms changed when she was in them, oriented, settled, drawn toward a single point. She was wearing something he had not seen before. Still dark, still simple, but different. Something in the fabric or the cut that was slightly more formal, slightly more deliberate. The way you dress when you know a night is particular. She sang 5 songs. He had only ever seen her sing 4. The first 3 were familiar, songs she had built into the rhythm of her sets over the weeks. He had been coming. He knew them now the way you know things you have absorbed without intending to. The point where her voice drops into the lower register, the pause before the bridge, the specific movement of her right hand when a phrase resolves in a way that satisfies her. The 4th song was one he had not heard before. Slower, lower. Something that moved through the room at the temperature of the air itself, not disrupting anything, just filling it. He was watching her face when she began the 5th song. He saw the moment she decided. Not in her body. She was already standing still, already composed. In her eyes, a small internal shift. The way a decision looks when it is not about choice, but about acknowledgement. She had always been going to do this. She was simply arriving at the moment of doing it. She sang the first verse to the room. The second verse, she looked at him. Not the way she had looked from the stage the first night. That had been 1 second, an assessment, a recognition. This was different. She held it. Through the verse, through the bridge, through the space between the bridge and the final chorus. She sang directly at him, and the room felt it, and went very quiet in a way it had not been quiet before. The whole room knew. He did not move. He was not capable of moving. He was aware of his own stillness as something external. A fact about his body he was observing from a slight distance. She finished the song. She held the last note a beat longer than the room expected. Then she nodded to the pianist. The lights shifted back. She walked off stage. The applause was long and warm, and she did not come back out for it. He was still at his table. His assistant had materialized somewhere to his left, and then quietly unmaterialized. His phone had lit up twice, and he had not looked at it. The room was beginning to move. People settling their bills, pulling on coats, The gradual unhurrying of a crowd that doesn't want to leave, but knows the night is done. He did not move. At some point, 10 minutes, perhaps 15, the room had mostly emptied. The staff were beginning the quiet mechanics of closing. Hyun-soo was behind the bar, with the particular efficient focus of a man who intends to finish on schedule regardless of who is still sitting in the room. Then, her hand on the bar next to him. She had come around from backstage without him seeing. She sat down in the seat beside him. Not 2 seats away, beside. He looked at her. She looked back. Her face was the way it always was. Clear, unhurried, finished evaluating. But there was something different in the set of her shoulders. Not softness, ease. The specific ease of a person who has made a decision they are not reconsidering. Tokyo and Bangkok, she said. 3 weeks. I know, he said. I don't do goodbyes, she said. I'm not doing one now. I know that too. She looked at him. When I come back, she paused. Not for effect. She was choosing precisely. You're either here or you're not. I won't look for you. I won't wonder. I'll be back in this room running this club on the day I said I'd be back. And you'll either be at that table or you won't. He held her gaze. I'll be at the table. Don't tell me that, she said. I don't want the promise. I want the fact when it happens. He absorbed this. It was. He understood. The most honest thing anyone had said to him in years. Perhaps longer. A clean transaction, not between power and want. Not between obligation and return. Between 2 people who were both capable of being alone and were choosing, provisionally, not to be. No performance around it. No safety net of premature declaration. All right, he said. She nodded. Then she looked down at her hands on the bar. He looked at them too. Strong hands, careful hands. The hands she had described once as having the memory of both a dancer and a business owner. Hands that knew weight. You stayed in the doorway the first night, she said. For seconds, you told me. Yes. What were you thinking in those for seconds? He considered this. He had turned it over many times in the weeks since. That specific suspension of self. The 4 seconds of not knowing his own name. He had never found a fully satisfactory answer. I was thinking that I had been in rooms for 15 years, and I had never once been surprised by what a room felt like, he said. And then I was surprised, and I didn't know what to do with that yet. She turned to look at him. Something in her face had arrived at a different place than it had been. Not open. She was never open in the way that word usually means, but present, fully present, which from her was something more than most people's open. I saw you from the stage, she said, before the second verse. I know. I was there. I saw you, and I knew. She stopped. Started again. I knew you were going to be a problem. He almost smiled. It arrived and then resolved without quite happening. A problem, he said. The kind that doesn't resolve cleanly. She picked up her water. I considered not looking at you again. But you did. But I did. A pause. I decided if I was already in it, I was going to be in it fully. I don't do things by halves. He looked at her. I know that about you. You've been paying attention. From the first night. She set down her glass. She turned toward him slightly. Just slightly. A reorientation of the body that was neither invitation nor withdrawal, but something that acknowledged proximity as a fact between them. Then she raised her hand and placed it flat against his chest. Not gently, not tenderly, precisely, the way she did everything. The way you press your hand to a wall to feel whether it is warm or cold, to learn something specific. His heart was beating. He was aware of it in a way he had not been aware of it in a very long time. She held her hand there for 5 seconds. He did not breathe. Still there, she said quietly, not to him, to herself, filing the fact. Then she removed her hand, stood up, straightened her jacket. 3 weeks, she said. She walked to the door at the back of the stage. At the threshold, she stopped. She did not turn around. Don't be late when I'm back, she said. Then she was gone. He sat at the bar in the emptying club. Hyun-soo moved around him with the quiet efficiency of a man who had seen everything and was commenting on none of it. The lights came down to the minimum. The last staff member went out the side door. He was alone in Blue Lotus. He noticed this as a fact, not thinking about Kang Tae-young, not thinking about the 3 deferred meetings, not running the calculations he ran continuously in every other moment of every other day. He was sitting at a bar in a closed club in Itaewon, in the particular silence left behind when a room has held something large and then released it. And he was thinking about 5 seconds and a hand pressed flat against his chest. Still there, he picked up his jacket. Stood, walked to the front door. Outside, the street was wet. It had rained while the set was happening. That particular Seoul rain that came and went without announcement. The air was cold and clean. He stood on the pavement for a moment. His driver was at the corner. His assistant had the secondary phone ready. The city was doing what the city always did, which was continue, indifferent, turning everything into motion and transaction. He thought, 3 weeks. He thought, she doesn't want the promise, she wants the fact. He thought, I will be at the table. He got in the car, put his phone face up on the seat for the first time in hours, looked at the messages. There were 11. He was scrolling through them, handling the first, deferring the second, when his phone lit up with a notification from a number that was not in his contacts. A photograph. He opened it. Solange. Outdoors. Daylight. Somewhere that was not Seoul. A street that looked like it could be Paris or Brussels. Stone buildings. A different quality of light. She was laughing. He had not seen her laugh. Not like this. Not with the full body ease of someone caught off guard by genuine delight. She looked younger and exactly her age at the same time. She was with a man, young, late 20s perhaps, light-skinned, mixed, with a specific quality of face that Jae-won had been trained his entire professional life to read, and now was reading with a coldness that surprised him. The man was standing close, not touching her, but oriented toward her with the particular attention of someone who is tracking a specific person in a crowd. Below the photograph, one line of text. You think you're the first man who's looked at her like that? Ask her who her daughter's father is. He looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he looked at the man's face again. The jaw, the quality of the cheekbones, something in the way he stood, a stillness that was not casual, but trained, habituated, The posture of someone who had learned early to take up exactly as much space as he needed and no more. Jae-won had seen that posture before. In a mirror, he set the phone down on the seat face down. Outside, Seoul moved past the windows. His driver said nothing. His assistant said nothing. The rain had started again. Light, persistent, the kind that doesn't announce itself, just arrives and continues. He picked the phone back up, looked at the sending number, anonymous, rooted, not a local number, not a Korean prefix. He could have it traced in 40 minutes if he wanted. He put the phone down again. He thought about what she had said the first night he had asked about her daughter. She's 26. She's a ceramicist. She has a studio in Moppo. Said it lightly, without weight, without the particular care that people put around information they are hiding. Just a fact. Her daughter in Moppo. He thought about the man in the photograph. He thought about a closed door that she had never once suggested he had the right to open. His driver turned onto the highway heading north. The city lights reflected off the wet road. He held his phone in his hand without looking at it. He was aware of the particular quality of the next 3 weeks, their new shape, their new weight. He had planned to wait, to be at the table when she came back, to let the fact be the fact instead of the promise. Someone had just put a question in the middle of that plan. Carefully, deliberately, someone who knew enough to make the question land. The question was not about the daughter. He understood this. The question was about the door, about whether he would respect it or break it open, about what kind of man he was when something he could not classify was finally given a potential classification. He stared at the rain on the window. He thought about her hand on his chest, the precise pressure of it, the 5 seconds in which she had checked for something and found it present. Still there, he opened his contacts, found the number for his best analyst, the one he used only when precision mattered more than speed. He looked at the name for a long moment. Then he put his phone in his jacket pocket without dialing. 3 weeks. He would wait. He would be at the table. Whatever that photograph was. Whoever sent it and why. Whatever door it was pointing at. It was not something to be broken open in a car at midnight because someone anonymous had decided he needed to be unsettled. He was already unsettled. That was not new. He had been unsettled since a doorway. For seconds, a voice that made the air heavier and warmer, and like being underwater in the best possible way. He had learned to stay in it. He would keep learning. He leaned back in the seat, closed his eyes, let Seoul move past him in the dark. On her voicemail, if he had called, which he did not, a man's voice would have spoken in Korean with an accent Jae-won had not heard in 11 years. The accent of a city, the accent of a decade, the accent of a thing not yet arrived. He did not call. He waited. He was, for the first time in a very long time, willing to. If this story resonated with you, subscribe so you don't miss the continuation. Leave a comment. What did you feel at the end? What do you think about Solange and Jae-won? Share this with someone who will understand it. With every story, we grow in numbers.